You get what you are, not what you want. And listen, I know that might be hard to understand, but it's just the truth. And I know you can try and willpower your way to get what you want. You can have all the discipline in the world. You can do all the strategies. You can try and align yourself and manifest your way into the life you want. But in reality, that's all just cope. The only thing that actually works in getting the things that you want in life, whether that's the finances, the love life, the health, the whatever it is, you have to become the kind of person who is deserving of it. And everything else is downstream of that. And so many guys make the mistake of thinking, oh, I just need to do XYZ strategy to get this thing, which they're thinking about it almost the right way, but their entire philosophy, their entire outlook on life is still incorrect. They're still operating from a state of, once I get this thing, then I'll feel a certain way, but it's backwards. You need to become the kind of person, and naturally everything else that person has comes with it. And so when it comes to relationships, when it comes to love and seeking a real love, real connection, and a lasting partnership, like with a loyal feminine woman, like what would that woman ideally want in a man? Right? And so ideally, you would need to align your thoughts, habits, and behaviors with that kind of man, right? And so I'm not talking about what are the step-by-step routines, what are the strategies to do that. It's more so just becoming aware, right? What are my current inputs? What are my current thoughts, behaviors, and habits that are keeping me stuck in my current reality? What's keeping me from stepping into that version of myself? What's keeping me from the life that I truly want and the woman that I truly want? Because you only attract what you are. And this is especially true in relationships. This is especially true in the types of women that you're drawn to and the types of women that are drawn to you. Your attraction is the most accurate mirror of you as a man. And so this is what Carl Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you'll call it fate. And this is what anima integration is. Our attraction patterns are usually projections of what we're suppressing inside of ourselves. And until we unpack what that's truly pointing to, we're going to keep repeating the same patterns. We're going to keep attracting the same types of women in different bodies, right? And that's why relationships might be fleeting for you. That's why they might be shallow. That's why you might go on a couple dates with a girl, or you might sleep with a girl a couple times. And then once you notice that she's actually catching feelings for you, then you step back, right? Because it's not actually real love. You don't actually care for this girl. You don't actually love her. That was just a projection, right? And you feel like maybe you have bad luck with the types of girls that you're attracting, the types of girls that you're drawn to, the types of girls that are brought into your life. You feel like, oh, they're too shallow or they're chaotic or whatever it is. That's all you. That's all you, bro. You attract what you are, right? And so until you fix or change what's inside here, the reflection is not going to change. The women that are brought into your life are not going to change, okay? And this is what no other relationship advice out there will tell you, right? And so let me be clear as well about who I'm talking to here. I'm not talking to the guy who can't go on dates, who doesn't have any girls that are interested in him. This is for the guy who has no problem going on dates, right? He gets plenty of female attention, but he finds that every connection stays shallow, or it doesn't go any deeper than just the sex or the casual state. And so you're not going to break through this with more willpower, right? The willpower that you have in your career and your business and building your physique and fitness and health, that's great, right? And you need to keep that, right? Because your drive and ambition and your willpower is what gives you that masculine energy and that masculine presence. But the other side of that, in becoming fully masculine, is learning how to surrender that side of you. Because that side of you that's controlling, that's analytical, that's logical, you need to surrender that side of you when it comes to relationships, right? That's what's keeping you from unlocking that real long-term intimacy and connection, right? And I know that might be hard to understand, but surrendering that side of you is what's going to unlock attracting that real loyal feminine woman into your life. And so the way that you do that is by first becoming aware of what are these patterns that are coming up for me, right? What are these types of women that I'm drawn to and that are drawn to me? And what are these typical patterns that I'm showing, whether that's detachment or if that's fear of validation or if I'm not wanting to show vulnerability in her or lust or whatever it is. What are these patterns that are keeping me from from that deeper connection, right? What is it that's keeping me or bringing me away from that connection, right? That's keeping one foot in the door, one foot out, right? And then once you become aware of that pattern, then you can start to look at, where did this even start, right? Where did this pattern first start? Where did I first learn that love wasn't safe? Where did I first learn that intimacy wasn't safe? Maybe it was somewhere in childhood. Maybe you picked it up years ago, right? I don't know. But it'll take some digging into getting into where that started, right? But that's really the first step. And you don't even really need to fully know where it started or why it started, but it can be really helpful in getting into the root, right? Because this work is about getting to the root, which is going to give you that permanent change, that lasting change, right? So once you can gain awareness over what are these patterns and where they're coming from, then you can start to understand what you would have to do to change these behaviors. So this is what subconscious rewiring is. So by getting into the root pattern, you can start to align your thoughts, behaviors, and habits with the kind of man that you actually want to be in real time, right? But the way that you do this isn't through willpower or a specific strategy, but through daily practice of constant awareness and through discipline, through meditation and guided breath work and things like this can help you to speed the process up, right? Because whenever you're in these states and these triggers come up, it's usually because you're in a fight or flight state, right? Because somewhere along the way you learn that these behaviors aren't safe, right? So it's a safety mechanism to keep yourself safe, right? So your nervous system goes into fight or flight mode to keep you safe. And so in those moments when your nervous system is in fight or flight mode, you need to just take a step back and gain awareness, right? As to what's going on. What are these patterns that are coming up, right? What are these triggers that are coming up? And just focusing on your breath. Right? Focusing on your breath in the moment can be the most powerful thing that you can do, right? Because it forces you out of your mind and into your body. And so the main reason why you're falling into these patterns is because you don't have that awareness. You're not present, right? So this brings you from that fight or flight state into presence, right? So that's really the most foundational step in regulating your nervous system, right? So once you can gain awareness and gain control over these triggers and over your nervous system, then you can actually start to plant those new beliefs and new patterns, right? But you're not going to be able to change if your body doesn't trust it, right? So in real time, whenever those patterns do come up in a relationship with a woman, right? When you feel the need to step back, or when you feel that lust coming up, or that detachment, or that fear of vulnerability coming up again, then you know what you need to do. And then you know that it's actually safe and you can step through that. But if you haven't made those unconscious patterns conscious, then it's going to keep repeating, right? So that's why the awareness piece is so important, because without that awareness, without making the unconscious conscious, it's going to keep going on autopilot, right? And that's what Carl meant again when he said, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it's going to dictate your life and you're going to call it fate. And so there's so much more that goes into it, right? But you can start to do this today, right? Really the first step here is really just gaining awareness over what are these patterns that are coming up, right? And how can I start to become aware of where this even start for me, right? And is this even something that I'm wanting to change, right? Because if it is, if you're this far, I'm sure it probably is. And what I would say, there's a lot of guys that maybe aren't ready for this kind of work, right? And for guys that are struggling with lust and maybe struggling with porn addiction and things like that, that's usually because they just don't have a big enough why in their life. They don't have a big enough mission, right? Because that's just your unconscious mind looking for some sort of an adventure in life. And in my experience in working with guys, talking with a lot of guys, mainly about lust and the different types with casual sex and with porn and things like that, is the guys who struggle the most with porn, they just don't have that drive, or they don't have that motivation or kind of sense of mission and purpose, right? So there are some parts that you can take from this, but like more importantly, it's just about finding what is that why? What is that thing that I'm actually putting off in my life? What is that thing that I'm not taking action on, right? That's making me fall back into lust, because that's the only thing that you're gonna have to figure out to actually step through a porn addiction. But in my experience with these guys that are very ambitious, they are crushing in business, in their career, they have that why, right? But it's that motivation, it's that discipline, it's that mindset that they're taking from their career or from their business into their relationships that's keeping them unfulfilled, and it's leading them into unfulfilling relationships. And so hope that helps.